Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
Thank you very much, Hubert. Maybe before I share my remarks, just a quick introduction about the NDC Partnership for those of you who are not familiar. NDC Partnership is a global coalition that has over 200 members, including more than 100 developing countries and developed nations, as well as MDBs and UN agencies and other key stakeholders like IRENA, WRI, or CPI, and many others. So the purpose of the partnership, really, the reason it was set up, of course, to help countries enhance NDCs, but a lot of our work right now focuses on implementation of NDCs, which is a very complex and broad process that essentially helps countries to take their NDC targets and translate them into investment actions. So we support countries in developing what we call NDC implementation plans. And ideally, those implementation plans have to identify sectoral priorities and investment needs and lead to the generation and the creation of the project pipeline. We work with the Ministries of Finance and Ministries of Environment. Those are our focal points. There is a lot of, as you can imagine, requests that are coming out from countries about all sorts of climate, finance-related requests. A lot of the requests relate to investment planning work, as well as project development work, and many other requests. So what we have been trying to do, to create that pipeline of projects, first of all, support countries in undertaking a cohesive NDC investment planning process. Because when we talk to the investors, they highlight the importance of a proper kind of transparent and disciplined process across the economy being undertaken by countries in prioritizing projects so that they withstand political cycles and they deliver both development and climate impact. So I think while we do this work on investment planning and creation of pipeline of projects, I wanted to just note three things, in terms of our private sector engagement, which is a key part of our work. Number one, I think countries need to understand the entire value chain because they ask us often to do the mapping of private sector. And the private sector, it's a value chain. You start all the way with your institutional investors, and there are different types. They're publicly owned institutional investors like sovereign wealth funds that Duncan is going to talk about. They're privately owned institutional investors. They also have, different mandates, different risk tolerance. But then you also have corporates that have a vested interest in greening their supply chain that may be able to take more of that equity risk that Jay has talked about and may be able to come in and do more of the project development work. Then you have the whole, supply chain. So I think it's very important for the countries to understand the value chain, and when they do their investment planning and create their pipeline of projects, they really distinguish between the projects that would attract different type of investors and different type of products. And also, pooling arrangements are important because, you have a net pile of NDC projects. You have some, high return projects. You have low return projects. You have high risk projects, low risk projects. You have adaptation, mitigation, hybrid projects. So it's important for the countries to understand how they need to be categorizing the projects and what projects would qualify for what. For example, blended finance, we have been saying that, it needs to scale. It needs a pipeline of projects. But what projects would qualify for blended finance? Those have to be the projects that don't yet have an established business case but have a potential of commercial viability. So it's very important, I think, to support countries in that process. I also wanted to really commend you, Hubert, and the team for putting forward that model law on institutional investor and public partnerships, because that's type of private sector input that is needed as we support countries in developing enabling environment, really understanding how can the processes of identification, prioritization, procurement and development could be streamlined and supported by the private sector. So I will stop here and happy to chime in later on.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.